Fire away, Karen.
My life shows me that I'm very afraid of punishing God.
Yep.
Just recently I kind of got that, I kind of came to this idea that, and it felt like a truth, that my desperate desire to have a kind and loving God is actually just in my mind.
Yes. Yep.
And
It's a hope. It's a hope more than reality.
Well, it's kind of messed up my praying, because I'm thinking,
I agree.
I don't know if there are spirits saying there's no point praying to that God because you don't believe in it.
Exactly.
And I don't know what to do about prayer now.
Okay, well let's examine the emotion. Is you believe in a punishing God, right? So there's the emotion. Now we talked about God. This is where we want to aim for initially, isn't it? Blank slate is really what we want, and you believe that God's a punishing God. So the question becomes, where did this belief come from? Now, has God personally punished you? If you keep the mic with you.
No.
No. So you've never had an experience where God goes bolt of lightning. And I suggest to you, actually, if God decided to punish you, then perhaps the punishment would be quite extreme as well. So you'd definitely notice it, right? So God's never decided to punish you. You've never experienced personal punishment from God. And yet you believe in a punishing God. So the then question has to be asked, where did this emotional belief come from? Doesn't it? Because it can't be with God, because it's not been a personal thing with God. So where does it come from? Where do you think it comes from?
From what you're saying, like, it has to come from when I was a child. Or
Yes.
I sometimes think it was the way my parents were treated and it came through to me.
Correct. So it's got to come through your childhood experience somehow emotionally, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, either from the fact that your parents were treated that way about God,
Yeah.
and therefore had it in their heart and soul by the time you were conceived, you then would have absorbed it, and therefore you have the same feeling inside of yourself. So can you see that this is an important association to make? See, the problem is that you've actually felt it as towards God, rather than actually seeing it as something that came from your parents' feelings. You follow?
Yeah, I've seen that intellectually, but I've never felt that.
Yeah, well, this is the reason why focusing on this towards God is not releasing emotionally anything, because it's actually not a belief you have that is your personal experience. You follow?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's the personal experience type of associations emotionally that we need to release. So right from the time of conception right the way through, it's the personal experiences that we can only release. We can't release something that wasn't a personal experience, basically, is what I'm suggesting to you. So you have two options here. One is to actually start talking to God about your belief and knowing that it's false.
Okay.
Do you follow me?
Yeah.
And knowing that God's never treated you that way, and what you would like to have demonstrated from God is a contrast, isn't it? Wouldn't you like that? Like, wouldn't you like God to, like, so if this is the viewpoint of God, I'll just rub this out up to there, just so that I've got more whiteboard to write on. So at this stage, you don't know what God really feels about you.
That's
really.
true. Yeah.
That's how it really is. You believe he's going to do that to you.
Yeah.
Right? If you get something wrong or do something wrong.
Yeah.
In particular, you believe that's going to happen. And that has to have come from a number of different sources, does it not?
Yes.
So what are those sources potentially? Intellectually, let's go through the operation. What are those sources that they could have come from, that belief?
Well, the one I can most identify with is the way my mother's beliefs about God.
Right. So can you see one of the things you're going to have to process is your desire, i.e. F's, isn't it? You're going to have to process your desire to accept your mother's beliefs.
Okay.
Does that make sense? You have a desire to accept her beliefs.
Because I'm afraid of disagreeing with her.
Yeah, why? Why is anybody afraid of disagreeing with anybody? Aren't we
Well-
afraid of punishment or disapproval and not acceptance and quite a
Yeah.
number of things? Yeah.
Gets a bit vague for me there, but yeah.
Well, this is the thing, is that there must have been something happen in your childhood where you become so afraid of disassociating your beliefs from your mother's that now you have a desperate need to believe things that your mother's mother believes, even though you don't necessarily even intellectually accept that they can be logically true.
So do I have to identify what that was? Or?
You have to work out the emotions you feel about why you want to accept your mother's and father's beliefs.
Okay,
Does that make sense? What are you afraid of with them?
right.
Yeah, is what you're going to have to look at,
Okay,
because you're afraid of disassociating from their belief systems.
yeah,
Otherwise, you would have already done it, right?
yeah,
Because you've heard over your life, you think you've been a Catholic, you've learnt a lot about God. Some of it's been good, some of it hasn't been that good, but some of it's been good. And since the last 7 or 8 years, you've been listening to God's truth, and yet that you haven't been able to absorb that. So there's got to be something preventing you from absorbing that truth.
Well, there's such a strong thing that for as long as I can remember, God was loving and good, and just to suddenly realise recently that it was just in my head, you know?
Correct. There's a difference between what you've been told,
Yeah,
right, and what the feelings are.
yeah,
And this is why what you're told is of very little importance in your progress, right?
yeah,
It's your feelings that matter more. So you've been told a whole things about God. In fact, if anything, you've been told what to believe about God without actually knowing that God's like that.
yes,
It's almost like, and this is what the faiths like the Catholic faith and other faiths do, whether it be Muslim faith, Catholic faith, Hindu faith, whatever faiths we have on the planet, because we've grown up with them. And if you think about it from a doctor's perspective, from the moment of conception, you're absorbing people who emotionally have belief systems attached to certain faiths, and in your case, the Catholic faith. And you're absorbing their belief systems because it's the only way to maintain survival with those particular people. If you disagree with them, mum and dad, if you disagree with mum and dad on that matter, and in your case it was your mother who had a more firm belief.
She was a very devout one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you disagree with her on these subjects, then you're now in disharmony with her. If you're in disharmony with her, as a child, your very survival is threatened, actually. And it's highly likely being in disharmony with her also carries the threat of punishment. You follow? Hence the belief.
Yeah, I just don't get the form of punishment my mother would give me, because like she's so sorry for herself all the time. It's like, but I'll ponder on that one.
But this is where you need to use your will to feel more about the situation with your mum. Because the reality is your mother has some very, very violent tendencies, and I can feel her from the spirit world, and she's still got violent tendencies about certain subjects, and she's militant about the Catholic faith.
Yeah, she's very demented, but I imagine she's mostly in not.
Yeah, she is mostly in the spirit world, right? She's still alive.
Yes.
But she's like lost her
Yes.
mind, basically.
Yes.
And in a quite emotional state, and very, very militant about her faith, you know.
Yeah, I get it.
It's the only thing that keeps her functioning in her mind, you know.
Yeah.
Yep. So in her spirit form, which she's in now predominantly, because she's not present in her body hardly at all.
Yeah.
In her spirit form, she is very, very frightened and concerned, and her Catholic faith is the only thing keeping her in her current state. In fact, if she abandoned that, she believes at this stage that she might have to abandon everything, and that would be a disaster for her.
Well, it was a big thing in her life, bigger than us, you know.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel it's quite clear why you have these beliefs.
Okay.
The key for you is to start letting yourself feel your mother's true feelings if you had confronted her beliefs about God and her beliefs about her faith.
Okay.
You follow? And that's what you're scared of. That's what you're scared of doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because she will have quite a strong violent reaction to it. She's already had strong violent reactions to it in the past.
Well, it was one of the big factors that led me to having an abortion. I didn't want her to know that I was pregnant.
Yeah. The fear of her feelings about your pregnancy was strong enough to cause you to abort the child. Even that's how afraid of her you are.
Yeah.
Right, and you need to start acknowledging that level of fear exists for a reason.
All right.
Do you understand? Like at this stage, you almost believe that it's a figment of your imagination that you needed to be that afraid of her. I'm saying to you, no, a child who's that afraid of their parents is afraid of that parent for a reason. You follow?
Yep.
Yeah, and the stuff that comes from your mother, there's a lot of potential violence there.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a reason.
Thank you.
You follow?
Yeah, thanks.